Hi, everyone. Welcome to our last Tell It To Me Thursday of April. I'm not sure we're going to continue this into May, especially since we look like we're going to be open by the end of the month. But certainly, I am hoping to continue more of these live sessions, maybe with our collections or maybe with an expert. So we recognize that as we move forward into this brave new world we're entering, things are going to change. So we are becoming a little bit more flexible in how we do things, but it's been fun. I think one of our bigger issues in this field is that we don't really talk about what we do. There's this presumption of what we do, where we go, things like that. And reality is not always the fantasy. I remember once somebody asking me, they had asked me, was working in a museum like night at the museum? And I said, if that was the case, I would never work in a museum again if things sort of come to life. So I would prefer not for it to be that way. So this month we talked about what it is to work in a museum. We talked about archives. We talked about collections. Last week we talked about exhibits. But this week I want to talk about something that's a little different and, more importantly, a very point of contention for a lot of people, but a very important element to our organization, and that's money. Money, money, money. We talk about fundraising and development. They're essentially the same thing, the idea of raising funds to operate our institution. And the biggest questions that we get asked all the time is, well, where does your money go? Why do you do this? One of the first things I want to make very clear is working in a nonprofit does not mean we don't get paid. Working in a nonprofit means that all the money we make as an organization goes right back into our company. We are not publicly traded, we don't have public shares, and the money doesn't go into a singular or a group owner's pocket. Literally, the only difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit is our tax status. So when we are operating our institution to better improve our communities, we have to have money. It takes money to pay our staff. It takes money to keep our lights on. It takes money to buy the supplies that we've got to do. So, for example, when we're doing our boxes for our collections and archives, that costs money. And as we learned in the last couple of weeks, that's not cheap. If we have programs, we have to buy supplies and refreshments. When we're doing exhibits, we may have to buy supplies such as, our interp panels. So money is needed. It has to be done. We have to be able to operate. Now, we are a private organization. That means we are not part of a larger institution. We are not a council of a larger nonprofit, nor are we a department of a municipal nonprofit. So that'd be like a village, city, town, county, state, region, federal. We are here at the Berrien County Historical Association, private public. That means we have a private-public partnership. That means that we are a private institution working in conjunction with a public entity, such as, in this case, Berrien County, to create an engaging space that people want to come and visit to. So we do not own any of the buildings, anything that's permanent to the grounds, like the garden and the buildings and whatever signage that we choose to do and put up here in the next few months, physical changes to the building. So if we add new walls, or for example, we're looking to redo Bennett's Forge, anything that we build out in there, that all is county property. Anything that is collections, archives, operations, and non-permanent exhibits, so things within the exhibits themselves, those are ours. We have come together to work on creating this really great historical space. We receive $91,978 from the county every year to operate as an organization. This money covers 90% of our payroll costs. So this pays for my payroll, this pays for the curator's payroll, this pays for our museum operation coordinator's payroll, and our caretaker. We are an organization that's just big enough that we need to have 4 staff members. I have a master's degree and 2 bachelors. Most of our previous curators had at least a master's degree, and almost all of the ones I've interviewed this week have a master's degree. We also have, Tara has two bachelors, and so we're all college educated individuals. I have 15 years experience in the museum field. The majority of the people I interviewed for the curator position this week had a combined total of like 70 years in the field. So we have people with long experience coming in. By having quality pay for our staff, we are in a position to attract the best of the best. Bright minds, forward thinking individuals, and those with the skills to make the reality out of all of these dreams that people have for us. It's making our collections better. It is making our programming better. It's making our exhibits better. It's making our ability to connect with you all the better. The remainder of our funds come from various sources. We have memberships, so starting at $20 for individuals and going up from there. We have gift shop sales, so every dime in our gift shop goes back into our organization. We are moving towards a pay policy for some of our programs. So not every program will be paid. We want to have a good mixture of it, but when we start doing workshops, like our musical programs, we are charging a small fee. Those funds go back into the program themselves. We receive donations, so we do a year-end appeal. We just did our 45 for 45 to 45 campaign. We do our signature event every year. That's another fundraiser. And we also have grants as a source. Depends on the year. Some years we have grants, some years that we don't. I've been writing a significant amount of grants these last few weeks because I've got nothing else better to do. We're closed. So those are the other areas. So when people give us money, there's a couple of ways money gets worked. So we have what's called restricted and unrestricted. Unrestricted funds means we can use it wherever we want. If we want to use it for a program, if we want to use it to pay salaries, if we want to use it to pay our electric bill, because we do have utilities here that we have to pay for. If we need to buy paper, if we need to buy ink, if we have to do a repair, a minor repair, like all of our light bulbs need to be replaced, that means whatever comes in, we use it there. Restricted means that we only use those funds for a particular project. So a great example would be in 2016, St. Peter's Church in St. Joe donated $10,000 to our institution for our collections. So the money that they gave us is only used in collections. So we actually have a couple of different bank accounts, and we keep all of our restricted funds in those banks, one bank account, and then what we do is we keep a running track of how much we've actually spent. That way we know that we still have those funds there and they're exhausted. In that capacity, when using those funds, so for example, if someone's a sponsor for a program, that would be considered a restricted fund because you're giving me money specifically for that program to work. We try to make sure that we are being as cautious with the money as we can, especially in times like these. But for the most part, our goal is to make sure that when you give us money, it's being used. I know one of the bigger concerns that we had heard from our donors and from our partners was that we're giving you money, but you're not doing anything. What are you doing with our cash? And that is a legitimate question you should be asking every time you give to a nonprofit. A nonprofit should be able to tell you exactly where their funds are going. I spend approximately $102,000 annually on payroll. I am spending $12,500 on our utilities. That is our gas, that's our electric, that is our internet and phone, that is water and sewage with the village. So I should be able to tell you where my money is going. How much did you spend last year on programs? We spent X number of dollars on programs because we had X number of programs. Where did you use that money? We use it to pay presenters or performers, honorariums as they're called. We use it to purchase supplies such as refreshments. If we had to make something for somebody, then printing costs or whatever. It's not nickel and diming it, but we should be able to generally say I spent, $3,000 last year on programming. But that also should be that we had $3,000 worth of programming to go on. So what we do is we create a budget, as any business does, and then it's what we call a projected budget, and then throughout the year we have our actual budget. So we may project to spend, maybe I project to take in maybe $15,000 in grants, But by the end of the year, maybe I took in 25,000 in grants. Yes, we like the green. But for the most part, we would be able at the end of the year track and see. And our goal, like any for-profit business, is to stay in the green. We want to stay in the green. We want to be able to make sure that we're staying successful, because that money then gets rolled over into the next project, into the next program, into the next exhibit. And then in times of crises like this, we have a little bit to work with. So as a nonprofit, when we're doing fundraising and development, which is a little bit more detailed, we try to do what we can to connect you with what you like. So in the world of development, it's the saying is you find the right project for the right donor at the right time for the right price. So I'm not going to go to say, for example, Villox and say, hey, can you give us $5,000 to redo Bennett's Forge? That has nothing to do with what they're interested in. But if I went to them, or say Sawyer Garden Center, and say, would you give us money to help redo our garden? That would be finding the right donor for the right project. On top of that, it's not necessarily always a financial thing you can give us. It could be an in-kind. So if you give me $2,000 worth of product, that means then the $2,000 I bring in then can move the project further. I can make that money go a little farther. We can add a little bit more. So a great example would be our signage project. So the 45 to 45 for 45 signage project campaign was to raise money for new signage on the ground. Our signs are terrible and practically non-existent. So the idea is what would be the bare minimum I need to do this? Can I write a grant for it? Can I do this? I had a grant come across, a beautification grant come across my desk. We will be applying for that. And that's the idea of connecting that donor, that funder, to the right project. They want to make things better. They want to make things more beautiful in our communities. So that's someone I'm going to write a grant for. I'm not going to write a grant for Kia. I think it's Kia International has a grant. It's all STEM related. We're not going to write a grant for that. There's an art to it. You have to be able to connect everything. And then you have to show your donors that you're doing it. So for example, we're doing programming, or we're doing exhibits, or we're doing workshops or presentations, or we're making renovations. A great example is the Berrien County Bar Association gave us around $2,000 late last year, as the recipient of their annual golf outing. I immediately sunk that money into the renovations that we did last year. So that money helped purchase our track system. It helped purchase some of our interpretive signage that we did for a couple of the exhibits, and help was the Cedar Fund for that project. That total project was around $10,000. We funded a huge chunk of that out of pocket because we were in a position to do so, but that $2,000 helped jumpstart it. I got to do more with it because I had an additional $2,000 to work with to make that dream a reality. And so we had to show immediately that we were using that. It's not just giving thank yous to our donors, it's also saying, here's what we're doing with it. For the most part, money is pretty liquid in a museum. We're using it for physical things, purchasing supplies. So if I need to buy paper or office supplies, which I don't need to buy because I have like excess I'm trying to get rid of. If you need office supplies, come see me. I got enough stuff. Repair work. Now, our actual budget, our actual funding from the county is actually $101,000, but $10,000 is kept in trust by the Parks Department to cover repairs to the buildings. And so I call the county and say, hey, my HVAC system isn't working, or my electrical is looking a little weird. And they'll call that person out and they'll come take care of it. We need money because it takes money to operate. When we send out, the last 2 times we've had to put out for the curator position, we really discovered that, we were surprisingly actually competitive in terms of our salary in some areas. We're also not as competitive as we could be in comparison to others. So we're kind of in that middle. So what we plan on doing is we want to work on creating operations that feed back into the organization, so that most of the operation costs for our programs, exhibits, and all of the outreach are funded by outside donors, and that the money that we bring in from those programs, from the gift shop, from memberships, all then go back into our operations so that we can provide raises for our staff. So we're kind of going to a more quality of life salary, that we're putting away money into a rainy day fund. It is recommended for a nonprofit to have a 4 to 6 month reservoir, a reserve, so if you speak. So in times of crises, like a global pandemic, we have something we can rely upon. Now, we were not in that position. We have applied for a PPP loan and we'll receive it. We've applied for grants to help offset for the next few months so that we can actually continue to pay our staff. We are not dead broke, but our idea is to stretch out our funds, because once this lifts, we want to start transitioning back into our programs and new exhibits and get people back onto the grounds. Things are never going to be normal again like it had been, but as we move back into this new normalcy, then we'll be prepared for it. Sometimes we have to spend cash. So one of the things that we have an issue with is technology here. We need a booster system. Our internet is very weak on the grounds, and our buildings are just far enough apart that it's a struggle. So we need to purchase a booster system. We need to get new computers for all of our staff. We need to get a small printer for Tara next door. And so in that capacity, we are putting ourselves out there, and there are things that we need to buy. We need to get better improvement. We need to be able to use, I mean, a lot of stuff is being done digitally. We need to be able to do it. We spend money on things like our databases. So our database is a monthly payment towards a total amount. And then that helps us process our members so we can keep track of you guys a lot better, make sure you're getting what you need. It's helping us track our volunteers as we build our volunteer core. It helps us track our donors, so we know exactly where people are sending money towards. If you're sending toward a particular campaign, we know how much was made and who made it. And then that way we can better connect with you. So then later on, I can go back after the project is done. I sent you the thank you letter at the beginning when you first gave the donation, but now that the project's done, I want to send you an update. Here's what's going on. Here's what's happening. And so for us, it's a transparency thing, making sure that you understand where our money is going. As a private institution, we don't necessarily have to share every single detail of our budget, but it's important that people understand where our money goes. So where it goes for collections, where it goes for archives, where it goes for programs, where it goes for outreach, so things that we necessarily don't do on the grounds, what we're spending on fundraising, because we have to spend money to make money, what we're spending on staff, what we're spending on operations, and generally just kind of saying, here's what we're doing, here's what we're projecting. And so the board comes up with the budget in conjunction with myself. I do take consideration from the staff. So how much did you spend last year? Here's how much we spent. How much do you think? As we move on to more project-based in the next couple of years, we're going to have a budget that's going to look a little different each year, because we spent more. I maybe raised more money to do Bennett's Forge, but this year I only raised X number of dollars to do, we don't need as much to do Murdoch Cabin, or maybe we're redoing the garden and that's going to be 16,000 or whatever the project may be. So our budget's going to look a little bit different over the next couple of years, but nonetheless, they will be organized in a way that if the public wants to see it, they can. We don't have an approved budget yet. I recognize it's April, but we had so many changes that we've had to restructure the budget and the finances so that things were categorized correctly. So in general, your money is going where it needs to go. I can assure you, as the executive director of the Berrien County Historical Association, when you give me money, we're spending it. It's not being hoarded. It's not going into a black hole. It is being used to pay my staff. It's being used to keep my lights on. It is being used to make my programs a reality. It's making sure that my collections are getting properly cared for, slowly but surely. We're making improvements to the ground. We're improving our exhibitions, and your experiences here on the grounds are made a lot better. And so in general, we are trying to be as transparent as we possibly can. Over the next few months, we are going to be seeing a change in how fundraising works. We recognize that a lot of our partners are struggling just as much as we are, but we are always open for donations. So for example, in a few weeks, we're going to be doing pickup packs, Pioneer pickup packs, for families to take home and have their own little mini Pioneer Day, since we can't have Pioneer Day this year. We would need the funds to buy the supplies and put those together. And we don't know how many we're going to need yet. We're estimating maybe 100 packets, and that's probably going to be a few $100s. So if someone wants to donate to make that a reality, that's where your money is going to go. If you want to donate to a specific museum or a project, we have specific forms for that. And you can sign up and say, I want to be a sponsor for 4th of July. I want to sponsor this exhibit. I want to be the headliner for your signature event, whatever it may be, whatever it may be. And for the most part, we are working to make sure that you are aware of what's going on. It's not just thank you for your donation. It's here's how your donation worked, and we're really excited by it. So if it's me, a picture going like this next to a sign saying, oh my gosh, we got our new signs, this is great, then that's fine. Professionalism sometimes is not a necessary thing to get a job done. So we want to make it very clear, especially in these uncertain times, that we as a nonprofit are using your funds to the best of our abilities. And as we move forward into this, we will continue to accept donations so that we can continue to do all of this. This was a shorter little video than normal, only because there's not as much to say as there is with collections and archives. This mostly was important to me to reach out to all of you, to reassure you that we are here, to reassure you that when you give to us, that we are using that funds and that we are determined to make sure that everything continues to operate as it should. I want to thank you so much for being with us these last 5 weeks. It's been a very long month, not nearly as long as March had been. But if you were interested in programs like this and would like to help us move towards more digital programming to engage in even long after we open, please reach out to me. We always can use volunteer help. We can always use in-kind donations, which are physical, non-financial donations. It could be a computer, it could be paper, it could be maybe you go buy the boxes and donate it to us, whatever that may be, of course, and financial to help make these things a reality. It's been very exciting. I don't really get to talk about museums and how we work very often because we're usually talking about the history themselves. But this has been a really exciting thing. And if you are interested in us carrying on this kind of lecture and you want to learn more deep diving into things, especially after our curator arrives, please let us know. Let us know in the comments. Email me at rcizon@berrienhistory.org or at info@berrienhistory.org. And we'll see what we can do to make these things a reality for you. So again, thank you for joining us. This is April. And I'm more than happy to talk more about you offline and in person. We reopen May 16th, our normal hours at 10 a.m. Come see us. We would love to have you. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next month.